We're here today to do some troubleshooting on the CAE Ultrashifter. We installed the Ultrashifter into our E46 M3. A few notes on how we installed it. We used a center line and measurements to install it perfectly center on the transmission tunnel. You'll notice we installed it to spec, pair CAE, by keeping a slight angle on the shifter lever itself towards the back, and it's perfectly center in the middle of the mounting plate hole. Another note, our centering spring is adjusted and there's no extra slop or play either way you go. However, when you try to shift into reverse, the shift lever hits the mounting plate boot mount and is actually really close to the shifter bracket itself. Without waiting any longer, we're going to show you today how we fixed our problem. We're going to go ahead and remove the shifter off the mounting plate. Something important to note, the mounting plate, when it has the shifter mounted on it, has a very tight fit in the bracket. So you know that you can't just modify the plate. Now what we've done is we've reinstalled the shifter without the mounting plate, so that we can really see how much movement this thing needs and where the problem might be and what adjustments can we make. Without the plate inside, we can see when we shift into reverse, number one, it goes all the way to the bracket to finally get into reverse. We can also see though, once it's in reverse, it has some play in it that it doesn't need. But to get into reverse, it has to go all the way to the side. Looking at the angle, if we did shorten the selector rod, it would push that a little bit further forward and might give us the clearance that we need. It's difficult to see, but the spring clip also drags against the back mounting plate. When we come under the car, we see a couple problems. First off, the clip here is hitting that bottom mounting bracket. You can even see the scratches on the mounting bracket from where it's been trying to. For those of you that might be thinking just to flip the selector rod over to get the clip on the other side, or maybe that the ear is rubbing, if you do flip it over, we have it positioned in 6th gear to show you that if you do flip that over, the ear is going to be really close to that drive shaft. Before changing anything drastic, what we did is we went below and we shortened our selector rod. This gives us just a little more angle and a tiny bit more clearance, as well as doing minor gear adjustments up here, but we will show you. As it turns out, shortening the selector rod gave us just enough clearance to allow us to get into reverse. Beyond that, we shifted this plate forward. So in neutral, it's a little closer on the rear of the car side. However, that little round edge is what gives it the room to get into reverse. As you just saw, it still hits a little bit. So it's not optimal, but at least it can get into gear. To get it perfect, we're going to make one more crucial adjustment. If you do shorten your selector rod, keep in mind that you need to check your clearances. Just because it works in one gear doesn't mean it's going to work in the other. So like 3rd and 4th, it might tighten your clearances up. I still have clearance, so I'm good. But keep this in mind and double check yourself. To give us just a little more clearance, we're going to turn the shift lever and angle it ever so slightly towards the passenger side like this. So you'll loosen the selector rod, kick it at an angle, and then tighten it back down and check. Just like it was when it was stock. Try. So after shortening the selector rod, as you know, we clocked the rotating assembly ever so slightly in order to get more clearance over here. And now, when we go to reverse, we have enough clearance that we'll be able to get our boot on. We have about an 1/8 inch, and then we can shift it into gear without hitting anything now. So after making an adjustment, and this might happen to you without making an adjustment, you might see that you got a little play to the left and a whole lot of play in another direction in one of your gears. I'm using third gear as an example. For educational purposes, we removed our selector rod to show you the changes we ended up making long term. In our initial setup, we matched our new CAE selector rod to the stock selector rod in length. For axis of clearance and to make it shift better, we found that a slightly shortened setting was better. In the end, it ended up being about 1/4 inch shorter than the stock. In our initial setup, these two planes were perfectly square. In the end, for clearance reasons for reverse, and to get all the perfect angles, and it ended up being slightly clocked. So you'll notice this is the passenger side, and it's just slightly turned that way when compared to the other portion of it. So you're going to find that you might have to clock it, and the way to do that, we talked about this in the video, is to loosen the selector rod and turn the shift lever just slightly to get it to clock the way you would like it, so that you have a straight and true shifter lever. Another thing we changed from our initial setup, which is different from the CAE instructions. Initially, we had the dog ear up, but when the selector rod was shipped to us, this pin was in the opposite direction, which meant this clip was on this side, on the passenger side. When shifting into reverse, this clip would hit the edge of the mounting plate. So we also ended up moving that to the other side by pushing this pin out, putting it in the opposite direction, and voila. No more rubbing, no more clearance problems. Everything shifts perfect. When setting up the CAE Ultrashifter, the selector rod is the key to making it perfection. Being that we made so many changes to the selector rod, keep in mind with this initial setup that it might change. So just be prepared for that. Yours might be slightly different from ours based on where you install your shifter. But you can see what we've done to make ours work. When we shortened the selector rod, something else kind of nice happened. You'll notice I can shift this with my fingers now. It feels very solid, but it's so much easier. Being able to remedy some of our problems and the smooth shifting that you're seeing is the beautiful thing about having the CAE adjustable selector rod. Keep in mind that we first had the selector rod set up to stock length, which is what CAE recommended to start with. They didn't tell you to stop with it though. If you're enjoying the video so far, please use the links in the description when it's time to purchase parts for your car. Not sure what you need? Visit our webpage and you'll have access to categorized parts lists with instructional videos for your project. In doing so, you're supporting those who support Fat Boys Garage. It's a quick, easy way to help us continue to create quality content that is going to help you with your own projects. We love our cars, and we only use the best parts, which are the ones we recommend to you. We chose our supplier because of their amazing customer support, and we are confident you'll be well taken care of by them.